What's that? You want some chess? I guess I can hook you up, man. Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. All right, man, I appreciate everybody very much for stopping by. So I did have a request from my guy, Jay Bruce. You guys see him commenting on the page all the time. Appreciate you very much, my guy. But so I do have the round 3 game from the Grenke Chess Festival. And this is Wesley So versus Dmitrij Kollars. So all of my people that are coming from the Philippines, I will say mabuhay. Kamusta na? Anybody who is coming up from Germany, I will say hello. But yeah, if you guys are ready to go, man, let's take a look and see what we got for this game, son. Now, as you guys might or might not know, this is a Chess 960, or also known as 9LX game. So you guys probably noticed that the pieces are in like many different kind of weird orders or whatever. Like you got the knights over here chilling, the bishops over here, the queen's way over here. So, you know, as you guys probably know from Chess 960, there's 960 different ways to arrange the board. So this is just one of those numbers. And I will find out, try to find out exactly which one it is if I can. But yes, let's go ahead and get rolling. So we do see the move c4. We got c5. Knight goes to c3. Now, even though you are playing with the pieces kind of jumbled up in the weird order, you do kind of have a still pretty much most of the ideas that are going to apply to the game. The only thing is, obviously, there's no opening theory because there's just, like I said, 960 different ways you can arrange the board. So there's not really a way for you to kind of prepare from an opening perspective. And that's pretty much what 960 is, you know, basically trying to avoid. That's what Fisher said. But one of the ideas is we do see the move c4 and then the knight comes in behind the pawn. And that is generally ideal for you to do that. We do see knight c6, so black does the same thing. We got the move f4. Another one of the ideas that has come up, you know, when you do fling a pawn forward, you do want it to be supported to some degree behind it. And what better piece to support a pawn than a rook? So we do see the move e6. We got bishop to f2. Another one of the ideas that pretty much applies to all of chess is identify in your opponent's position a weakness and try to exploit that. So you do see Wesley So going for this pawn that is currently undefended. You know, of course, usually there's a bishop here defending it, but in this type of a case, we do not see that. We got the move b6 protecting our pawn. We do see the move e3. We got f5. We see bishop to f3. Why not pin this knight down? So basically what Wesley So has gotten to the point in the position right now is he is wanting to push the move d4. You know, you always want to have central control, you know, if you're playing chess, like, period. So, you know, one of the things you can do is, like, you know, push your pawns up in the center of the board. So Wesley So is preparing to try to get this d4 pawn move at some point. We do see bishop f6 trying to, you know, clamp down as much as we can. We do see rook to d1. Now, white is pretty much all in the position. We got knight going to d6. Before you just push d4 and you lose a pawn, you know, you kind of want to make sure that you're paying attention to this pawn. So kind of what white did earlier with the bishop, black is doing with this knight right here. So we do have to kind of be a little bit careful. So we do see the move d3, just making sure that we're solid. You definitely don't want to be so focused on your idea that you're like, hey, man, I'm just going to throw pieces away for no reason. We do see the move h6. We got knight 1 goes to e2. And like I said, we are still, you know, pressing in the center. So basically, white has pretty much did everything they need to do to push this move d4. We do see the move g5. So black is kind of counterattacking. They're also on a slight tip. They are trying to see if they can get the position closed down. You know, you definitely don't want the position open in front of your king. We do see the move g3. We got bishop to g6. And then we do see castles by white. And, you know, everything is kind of looking pretty regular, except for the fact that you have the rooks kind of on the ear of the king right here. So we kind of have to rectify that at some point. We do see queen going over to e8. We see bishop down to g2. Now, in this position right here, it was fully legitimate to go ahead and push d4. You pretty much made all the moves that you need to make to, you know, prepare it. So, I mean, there really isn't a great reason to not do it. Bishop to g2 is an alternative move, so it's not like it's bad. But, I mean, if you've put all your energy and effort into pushing a specific idea, and there really isn't a good reason not to do it, go ahead and do it real quick, buddy. So we do see bishop g2. Like I said, bishop goes to h5. You know, we are trying to pin this knight down to this rook to make it kind of uncomfortable. This is also influencing this d4 move, not super heavily, but it still is. We do see rook going to d2, a rook goes to h7. We see queen sliding over to c1. the rook goes to g7. And this is definitely a good way for you to, try to get, these rooks from the side of the king and try to get the king in a little bit more safety. So actually in this position now, you are prepared to actually start to try to rip the position open and try to get at this white king here. So we do see the king sliding over to h1, just trying to sidestep that threat. We do see bishop going to g4, which might kind of look like, why am I going bishop to g4 for? Like, this seems like a weird move, but there is a specific reason why you make this move. After bishop to g4, we do see the move h3, and because the king has slid over to h1, we do see queen going to h5, and black is kind of creeping in. You see that both players have pretty much gotten all their pieces out in the game. Black has developed pretty good, white's developed, pretty good, and now the last piece to kind of get into action is the queen. So black is really kind of, playing like a really solid game. Just a slight amount better for black, so it's not like either one is just going to score the touchdown. But black is definitely doing a good job of trying to get all their pieces going. We do see knight going down to g1. There really wasn't any better way to protect this. You could always go king to h2, but you kind of want to stay away from using your king to, try to protect pieces. It's not a very good piece to do. We do see pawn taking f4, and this is actually kind of a critical position. After we see g taking f4, we actually see Wesley So go g taking f4. And one of the things that you do have to pay attention to is, yes, your king has moved off of this line, but you have just now opened a file for your opponent, and they already have one rook on that file. So definitely something that was a little bit better in this position is going e takes. It doesn't really change a whole lot over here. It does make it a little harder for you to press d4, but you have kept the position closed in front of your king. So be very careful when you open up your king. So we do, like I said, we do see g taking f4. We got king sliding over to h8. Now we are full steam ahead trying to get this other rook on the g file, and then we kind of have a lot of pieces hanging out over here where this white king is. So we see bishop going to e1, and this is protecting g2, the bishop on g2. Rook f goes to g8, so like I said, all in. So like I said, you have to be kind of careful when you make certain moves because sometimes you give your opponent just a little bit too much. It is still pretty much kind of dead even here, but, you do see that black has a lot of activity for taking with the g-pawn instead of the e-pawn. We got knight c going to e2. This is a kind of a sneaky move. Not only is it protecting this knight down here extra, so this bishop can possibly move, but it is also threatening knight to g3. The knight does go to g3. It doesn't really leave the queen with a whole lot of options, and this bishop is still actually on pre. So we got to be careful. So we just go ahead and get rid of that. Bishop takes e2. We got the rook taking e2, making sure that we still pay attention to the fact that this bishop is hit twice. The queen side steps back to e8. We do see the move a3, trying to expand on the queen side. We got the move a5. Kollars is like, bro, I'm shutting all that down, man. What do you think you're doing, son? Right? Bishop goes to f3. We do see queen sliding over to b8. We got the rook going to g2. And we've kind of defended this position pretty well. This is still fairly even right here. But, Wesley So has kind of like, gotten out of the pressure that's on this g file. And definitely trading pieces. It will relieve some of that pressure. We do see the move b5. We got bishop going to c3. Bishop takes, and then we do see queen taking on c3. And we do kind of have some pins going on this king, but the king does have somewhere they can go. So we see king going to h7. We got knight going to e2. We got the move b4. The queen steps down to c2. Now, it might kind of seem like you just backed up to a random square, but there is a specific idea behind going back to c2 instead of going to some other square. We'll get to that in a second. Queen goes to c2. Like I said, knight goes back to e7, and then we do see queen to a4. I'm going to win a pawn. No, you're actually not, because the rook is going to take, and then the bishop's taking, and then the queen slides over to d8. So all your dreams have been crushed. Now I'm playing. They haven't been crushed. But I mean, you didn't live the dreams that you thought you were going to live. But like I said earlier, the queen going down to c2 was trying to reroute it here. And also, I mean, if you were going to be pressuring this knight with the queen, maybe you can win yourself a pawn like that. Stuff like that. We do see knight going down to g1. The knight goes to g6. We do see knight to f3 just in time because the knight would really love to go to h4 and really pressure this kind of somewhat pinned down bishop. We do see rook going to g7. Pawn takes b4. Pawn takes b4. And then we do see queen going to a7. And it is not really so much pressuring this pawn, but it is putting a lot of pressure on this pawn right here. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video and try to see what is the absolute best move for black to play in this position, go ahead and do so. Okay, so for those of you that said that you need to protect the c5 pawn, you are absolutely wrong. No, I'm playing. I mean, it wouldn't have been the worst move to make. I mean, it would be still keep things pretty, pretty dead even. But there is an even better move to make. One of the things you should notice in your position is that you do have a pass pawn right here, if not for this pawn right here. Because obviously this pawn is not really influencing this pawn because it can just push forward, right? So instead of being defensive and defending your c pawn, it is absolutely best, and this is the move that Kollars did fine, to go on a counterattack. So this is one of the things, this is why I picked this, because it is instructive. So you have a situation where when you get attacked, obviously your first impulse is to say, oh man, let me defend this attack. But one of the other things that you should be paying attention to is, yes, I recognize the attack, but can I go on a counterattack? Can I place another attack on you to counterattack your position? And if you thought about that, if you are black, you could have possibly come up with queen to f6. And that is absolutely 100% correct. So now white is in a situation where if they don't want to lose this pawn, they have to defend it. Because if you lose that pawn, it is going to be really hard for you to stop this b pawn. So we do see rook going to f2, having to make a defensive move for the moment. We do see the move e5, queen takes c5. We do see the move e4, and then we see the move queen to d4. For those of you that are trying to figure out why don't you just take this pawn right here because it looks juicy and free, the knight would be taken on e4, and you are looking at this really nasty fork, and that's not where you want to be. So we do see Wesley So say, hey, man, let's trade queens. I really do want to get this pressure off my b2 pawn. So we see queen taking, knight taking, pawn taking, and then the bishop going down to f1. And this is actually a really pesky pawn. So Kollars is definitely using his pawns to a really great advantage. And what you see right here is that Wesley So has started to have to play defensive moves, which is not really where you want your pieces to be doing. The knight goes down to e4. We got rook to g2. We got d2. Very dangerously close to the touchdown. We got bishop to e2. Rook goes over to f7, protecting the f5 pawn. We do see king up to h2. Knight goes down to h4. We got rook to g1. We got the rook down to f6. The rook slides over to d1. The rook goes to g6. We see bishop f3 trying to get rid of this knight that is holding this pawn down. We do see knight taking, and now we are primed and ready to be able to take this pawn right here. But we do see a nice counterattack, which is rook to c6. And this, we start to come up to a really critical position in the game. We do see king to g1, which is the best move. So everything's still kind of fairly equal, even though it kind of looks like black is kind of attacking white mercilessly. And then we do actually see the move d5. And this is an absolutely super accurate move to find in this position. And I will tell you exactly why later on when we get to the end of the game. But it is a very, very important move. We do see the move c5. We're not trying to open up the c file for this rook, but it kind of happens. Anyway, you really kind of didn't have a choice. The rook took c5. We do see knight taking d2, rook to c2, and then we have knight taking, and then we have pawn taking. And this is kind of a little bit of the reason why we see this d5 move played earlier, because now black has a solid structure here. And pretty much all things being even, black is definitely one attacking white because you have this pawn that is really, really hit severely. So we pushed it to b3, which, I mean, there really wasn't much better to do. And then we do see rook going to b2. And if you are white, this is absolutely not where you want your opponent to be because they are mercilessly attacking your pawn. So we see a couple of checks getting thrown here. The king goes down to h5. We do see a rook going to f6. The king goes over to h4. We got rook taking h6 with check, and then we see king to g3, which this is the only move, but it is kind of cute looking because it does threaten the mate in one, so you have to absolutely make sure that you don't get careless because the rook dropping down here is going to be mate in one since these kings do oppose each other. We got rook to g6 with check, making sure that we knock that king away from the mate threat. The king takes on h3. We got rook to g5. We got rook taking b3, king to f2. We don't want to lose another pawn. We're already one pawn down. The rook goes to check. We got the king down to e1. We got b3. The king slides over to d1. We have to maintain the square of the pawn. 1, 2, and then 1, 2. So we got to make sure that we are keeping contact with that after the rook knight move or something like that, like we see. Rook to g2, we absolutely under no circumstances want to trade, so we go ahead and avoid that. So the rook takes on f5. We got b2, and we got to do something, bro, because this pawn is literally about to get home sweet home. So we do see the rook going behind it. We got king up to g4. We see a little bit of shifting. I kind of go fast. We do see a little bit of shifting back and forth here. And then we get to this position here. After king to g4, we see the rook going up to b5. We kind of are, as white, we're trying to make sure that we keep a hold on this square here. But we're also trying to see if we can maybe push this pawn home. But it's kind of tough because the king cannot hold this pawn and hold this square at the same time. The king goes down to f3. We got rook b3. The rook goes to f2. We got f5. Finally getting a chance to move it, but the king is just going to move out of the way, which is what you see. Then we got the rook up to b8. The rook takes, and then we have a rook going over to g8. King goes to f2. The rook slides back to b8. Now, there's no way for black to continue to protect their pawn, but it really kind of doesn't matter because after we see rook to d5, king to c2, we have both of the white pieces making sure that this pawn does not promote, but the king is overloaded now, and you cannot protect and defend everything. So we do see king taking. We got the rook to b4, and then we do see king to f3. And it is in this position that Wesley So resigns the game. So this is, I believe, his first loss in classical time controls of a chess 960 game. You guys probably know from a whole bunch of years ago that he completely dominated Magnus Carlsen, when they were playing for the world championship in chess 960. But going back to what I was talking about before with this move d5, we're in this position here, right? I think probably kind of quite a bit of you, even myself at first, I was like, man, rook takes c4, right? Like, why can't you just take that? I mean, it looks pretty good, right? Well, the thing about it is this pawn is left way back. So if you were to be taking rook takes here, you would be looking at basically kind of the same position. And after this right here, you can either trade and then basically, white is able to kind of defend everything and they do have to worry about this pawn. Or you maybe do something like go down to here. After you take here and then you take here, you do take here with check. So it completely changes the dynamic of the position. So Kollars understood that. And that is why d5 really came in super handy. So I appreciate you guys very much for coming by. So I would say if you're from Germany, danke sehr. Anybody who is coming from the Philippines, I would say maraming salamat aking makaibigan. Post na nuno ring aking mga video. Mabuting pagbody to you. Man, I'm struggling. It's been a minute since I've talked Tagalog, man. So forgive me. But I'm going to check you guys and see you guys next time.